welcome to Tarun IS. Today we will discuss two important topics related with semiconductors and Indian diaspora from 29th of September 2022. Right? So let's start with first topic of the day. Semiconductor. Right? Recently, Government of India has proposed some of the changes in the production linked incentive scheme and design linked incentive scheme in order to drive the demand for semiconductor and chip making processes. Right? As we all know that in the world which is buzzing with digitalization, artificial intelligence, robotics and new industrial revolution, semiconductor and chip making process is highly important and it constitutes the basic of the semiconductor industry and the chip making process that drives and propels the whole new industrial revolution, which is marked by artificial intelligence and robotics. So let's start with that this topic of semiconductor and chip making is related with your general studies, paper 3, right? Science and technology, development and their application. You can relate this topic with this part of your syllabus, right? Now let us first discuss what are semiconductors. Semiconductors are basically either they are the compounds or the pure metals who have conductivity between those of conductors and insulators, right? For example, we have got silicon, we have got germanium, we have got compounds like arsenic, gallium, right? And the semiconductors revolutionized the whole electronic gadget industries during the 19th century when they effectively downsized the electronic gadgets. It started with the invention of rectifiers. Rectifiers are basically nothing but they are the AC-DC converter. We will not go into much detail with AC-DC conductor, but you should just remember that semiconductors are very important in downsizing an electronic gadget. For example, today we all demand the sleekest and the smallest smartphone, the lightweight laptop, and all these have been possible because of the semiconductors, right? Now we will move with the chip making process. You see that chip making is a highly costly process and it requires a lot of investment and efficient and effective infrastructure in order to drive the new industrial revolution. It involves fabricating units. It involves fabricating units, right? The ATM, which is assembly, testing, marking and packaging, right? And the whole economy of the semiconductor is valued somewhere between 500 to 600 billion US dollar. You can see it here. That the global semiconductor industry. Right? Now let's see, as we all have been discussing the applications of semiconductors, artificial intelligence, robotics, the electronic vehicles. The world which is marked by climate change, electronic vehicles are giving new horizon, they are giving new path to drive the mobility. Solar panels, the effectivity of the solar panel also depends upon the integrated circuits and the chip design, etc., etc. The self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, all these are possible because of semiconductors. The integrated circuits, microchips, Internet of Things, smart cities. Smart cities are possible and they will be even more effective in the future if we are able to revolutionize the semiconductor industries, right? Now, what are the global initiatives that have been taken by different countries? For example, US, European Union and Taiwan. You see that Taiwan, United States and South Korea, they are the major players in semiconductor business. In fact, the 5 nanometer chip, more than 90% of the 5 nanometer chip is manufactured alone in Taiwan. US government has also announced $52.7 billion fund for its Chip and Science Act. European Union is also mobilizing 43 billion euros for its chip manufacturing and semiconductor business. What India is doing, as we already discussed that India did start the PLI and the design linked incentives for driving the chip making and the semiconductor business, right? So India in 2021 had announced 10 billion USD, that is United States dollar, production linked incentives. Now what is production linked incentives? The more you produce, the more incentive you will be given. That is what production linked incentive. Design linked incentive, that it is related with the design. It is related with the design, the software and the intellectual property rights, etc. According to the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, India's demand for semiconductor and chip making will be approximately 70 to 80 billion dollars by 2026. And with the current pace of digitalization and with the current pace of artificial intelligence initiative that Indian government is taking place, the semiconductor business and the chip making process, it becomes highly imperative to be focused upon. In order to harmonize India's digital revolution with the globe, Indian government has come up with several changes. Now let us discuss what are those changes. In the previous scheme of production linked incentives and design linked incentives, the incentives were given depending upon the size of the chip. Now the Indian government had actually differentiated, or it had given the range of the the chips according to which the incentives were offered. The first range was less than 28 nanometer. The second range was between 28 nanometer to 45 nanometer, and the third range was 45 nanometer to 65 nanometer. Right? So these were the three ranges that were given by the Indian government. 50% or half of the fundings were offered for the 28 nanometer chip. 40% of the incentives were given for the chip which is between the range of 28 nanometer to 45 nanometer, and 30% of the incentive was given for the 45 nanometer to 65 nanometer chip, right? However, the Indian government, in order to harmonize the chip making process in India and the semiconductor business with that of the global initiative and with that of the global trend, the Indian government has proposed a uniform 50% fiscal support for all nodes of technology. Besides, it will also provide 50% of the capital expenditure. Now, what is this capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is related with the infrastructure, right? Infrastructure like land, the raw material, etc., etc. So infrastructure is involved here. So 50% of the capital expenditure will be provided by the government, and a uniform 50% fiscal support will be given by the government for all nodes of the technology. Now let us look at the recent development that has taken place in India with respect to the semiconductor business. The first is a memorandum of understanding signed with the Vedanta Group and a Taiwanese company called Foxconn. Foxconn is a major player when it comes to semiconductor and chip making business, and it has signed a memorandum of understanding of approximately of 1,54,000 crores of rupees to establish a semiconductor plant in Gujarat. Another plant by international consortium of $3 billion will be established in Karnataka, and another plant of $3.5 billion will be established in Tamil Nadu by a Singapore company. Right? These are the three important initiatives that have taken place in India with respect to the semiconductors. Now let us move on to the challenges which the semiconductor industry face. The first challenge is the funding, the fiscal support. Government of India has made some changes in the scheme. However, the outlay, which is of 10 billion US dollar, remains the same. The outlay remains the same. However, the government of India has done away with the subheadings, with the internal differentiation, right? The fabricating unit itself is very costly. One fabricating unit costs around 3 billion to 7 billion US dollar, and the outlay is not sufficient to drive the demand and to drive the semiconductor and chip making process. Therefore, funding is the first challenge. The fiscal incentive given by the government of India is not sufficient to attract the foreign companies to establish their semiconductor and chip making plant in India or their fabricating unit, right? There is also concern arising with respect to the investment. The ATM facility, the fab display, the ATM facility, this ATMP facility, and also the initial funding should be focused on design. The expert says the initial funding should focus on design, R&D, that is research and development, and third point is establishing a skilled pool of workers. Establishing a skilled pool of workers. Another challenge which is related with the infrastructure is that of the raw material and is that of the component which goes on into making a business a prosperous business. That challenge, and that is very daunting for Indian government, is the availability of the pure water. Now, chip making business or chip making requires ultra pure water. Considering the vagaries of monsoon, climate change and the frequent drought that India faces in several parts of the country, providing ultra pure water would be a daunting task for the government. Another challenge is to drive up the consumer demand, right? The post effect of the COVID-19, there is a low demand with respect to the digitalization, or you can say the digital gadgets. The government of India has also deferred its Bharat plan, has also deferred its plan to drive up, to provide the internet in all 2.5 lakh panchayats, which is known 5 lakh panchayat, which is known as the BharatNet plan. This also has been deferred. So therefore, the pace of internet penetration and digitalization is slow. Therefore, driving up the consumer demand will be another challenge. Electronic vehicles. All the hybrid technology of electronic vehicles are IPR technology. That means they are patented technology. So patented technology means that it will be expensive. It will be highly costly for a common man to buy, for a common citizen of India to buy such costly electronic vehicle. So consumer demand is another challenge for government of India. What is the way forward? What the Indian government can do with respect to this? You see that in Industrial Revolution 4.0 is the foundation, or you see that semiconductors is actually the backbone or the foundation of the new Industrial Revolution, or the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is artificial intelligence, robotics, etc., etc. So if India wants to keep pace with the global trend, it needs to focus on the semiconductor business. For this, India can try to rope in the PSUs like Bharat Electronics and Hindustan Electronics Limited in order to establish a foundation, in order to incentivize the foreign companies for collaboration and to establish their plan. So that's it with this topic. Now we will move on to the next topic of the day. Next topic of the day is about Indian diaspora. What is Indian diaspora? You see, Indian diaspora are the people of Indian origin, or those people who have settled outside and traced their roots to India, that constitutes Indian diaspora. They are the non-official diplomats. You can say they are the ambassador of India who projects India's soft power in different countries that they have settled in, right? So what is the news with respect to Indian diaspora? Parliamentary committee which was established to look into the problems, the welfare schemes of Indian diaspora, has released a comprehensive report regarding the same. So this becomes a very important topic related with your general studies paper 2, Indian diaspora, right? Here I have explained what is Indian diaspora. That means all those people who have settled outside and they have settled permanently or temporarily, and they trace their roots to India. US, UK, Canada, South America like Suriname, we have Guyana, Fiji, Mauritius, Maldives, South Africa, Uganda, all these countries where people of Indian origin have settled. There are more than 160 countries in which people tracing their roots to India have settled. Now, who all constitute Indian diaspora? There are non-resident Indians, commonly known as NRIs. All those people who have settled outside for more than 6 months constitutes NRIs. There are PIOs, people of Indian origin. All those who trace their roots to India up to 3 generations are known as persons of Indian origin or people of Indian origin. There are overseas citizens of India. What are overseas citizens of India? You see that Indians were given citizenship at the time of the commencement of the Indian Constitution, that is 26. The Indian Constitution actually commenced on 26th of this November 1949. But all those who left India post 26th January 1950, they are all called as overseas citizens of India. Now these three category constitutes Indian diaspora. How big Indian diaspora is? There is one important note that you should take into consideration, that PIOs and OCIs, this is not OVI, wait, this is not OVI, this is actually OCI, right? So the person of Indian origin and overseas citizens of India, they have been merged into one category since 2015. There is no separate category for this now. For the explanation purpose, I had defined them separately, but for the official purpose, they have been merged into one category since 2015, right? So now let us see how big Indian diaspora is. Indian diaspora, according to the international migration stock, it constitutes 31 billion. Out of that, 31 million, right? Out of that, 13 million are NRIs and 18 million are PIOs, person of Indian origin and non-resident Indians. And they have been majorly concentrated in countries like US, Canada, UK, and also you should notice that Indian diaspora is not a uniform diaspora. Whether it is in terms of the occupation, whether it is in terms of the skill, it is highly diverse diaspora. For example, if we consider the example of UK, majorly doctors are there, high skilled professions. If you consider Gulf, workers, laborers working in oil plants, right? So Indian diaspora is not a uniform diaspora. It is highly diverse depending upon the occupation, the skill, the status, the economic status. Diverse diaspora is there. Then there are Grimitias countries. Now what are Grimitias countries? During British colonial rule, Britishers used to take Indians as laborers to work in their plantation in outside colonies other than India, right? These countries were like Suriname, Guyana, South America, Fiji, which is in Pacific Ocean, Mauritius, Indian Ocean, Jamaica, Caribbean country, Uganda, Africa, right? So these are the countries. These countries are known as Grimitias countries, where Indian people were taken as indentured labor. Now what is indentured labor? Here, you see, what is indentured labor? For example, there is one person, a contract was signed. Britishers, what they used to do, they used to have this person signed a contract to work outside in the plantation, and these people were taken as workers via sea route. Well, the sea journey was itself another problem for the people. That is also another atrocities by the Britishers. But you see, But you see, I was talking about the Girmitiyas countries. So they are also Indian diaspora. They also constitute Indian diaspora, living there for generations and generations. Now let us discuss what are the benefits, or you can say that how Indian diaspora serves India's interest. The first important point that I would like you to focus upon is the soft power. What is soft power? Right? There is hard power and there is soft power. Hard power is the military display, the arms and ammunitions, the strength, the military strength display of a country. That what is the strength of its military? How many high-tech and advanced type of arms and ammunitions and weapons that a country has. That constitutes the hard power. But the soft power of a country is displayed in terms of the culture, the diffusion of culture. It is displayed food, cuisine, right? For example, Bollywood. Bollywood is quite famous in Afghanistan and also in other parts of the world. So you see, this Bollywood is what? The Bollywood movie is quite popular in different parts of the world. Let's say even Afghanistan. So what is this? This is soft power, like attracting people with in terms of the culture, attracting people, like yoga. You see yoga? What is yoga? Display of soft power. 21st of June is International Yoga Day. What is this? Soft power. 2nd of October, Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, is celebrated as International Non-Violence Day. What is this? Soft power. Indian diaspora, they work as Indian ambassador abroad. They diffuse the experience, exposure and culture. So Indian ambassador, but these are the non-official ambassador that contribute to the soft power of the country. What are the other benefits or how it serves India's interest? They bring in knowledge, they bring resources, markets, and also important thing is remittances. According to the World Bank report, $87 billion of remittances were received in the year 2021. And India is the largest recipient of the remittances, and it is also the largest country of origin when it comes to migration of the people. India is ranked 1 when it comes to migration of the people. Global Migration Report, India continues to be the largest country of origin. That means people from India, they migrate to different parts of the world. It also receives the largest remittance and it also is the largest country of origin. Very important point is the track to diplomacy. What is track to diplomacy? It was seen during the signing of Indo-US Civil Nuclear Deal that people of India who have settled outside, for example NRIs and this Indian diaspora, they lobbied, not official lobbying, but they lobbied for the civil nuclear deal in favor of India. So this is known as the track to diplomacy. So they contribute to the track to diplomacy, they contribute to the expertise, the challenges, knowledge, etc., etc. Now let us discuss the challenges that Indian diaspora faces. There are general challenges which all Indian diaspora faces, and there are region-specific challenges. First, we will discuss the region-specific challenges. Right? Let us take example of West Asia. That means the Gulf countries. So people who go to the Gulf countries to work, they are majorly semi-skilled workers or laborers. They face the problem such as declining jobs. Why? The reason is the low oil price. Ever since there is a boom of shale gas in America, the oil prices are decreasing, right? So because of that, the jobs are decreasing. The second point is the exploitative kafala system. Now what is this kafala system? I'll describe you that there is a person who is a citizen in the Gulf country known as the kafil, known as kafil. Now this person and the person who comes from India, this person will be assigned to this kafil. Now this person now this Indian citizen or person from India cannot move anywhere or cannot do anything without the permission of this kafil, right? So this becomes an exploitative relation. So this is the kafala system, which is highly exploitative, and another is the nitakat law. What is this nitakat law? Now, for example, in Saudi Arabia, if you see that Saudi Arabian government is trying to move from oil economy to other sectors of the economy. So they are reducing the jobs for the people from outside. They are giving these jobs to their own nationals. This is what is known as the nitakat law. That means giving jobs to their own citizens. So this is another challenge that Indian diaspora is facing. Now let us talk about the developed countries challenges, US, Canada, UK. Now people who go to US, Canada, UK, they're high skilled professional. So there is visa norms, for example, H1B visa. The visa norms are becoming even more stricter. The protectionism, they are also giving jobs to their own citizens. The protectionism, the strict visa law that it faces. And what are other general challenges that Indian diaspora faces is the contractual terms. They are not in favor of the laborers. The adverse working conditions, for example, in the Gulf countries. The wage related issues are there. The medical and insurance related problems are there. The other important point is the grievance redressal. There is no timely grievance redressal for the people who go outside. Untimely grievance redressal. Sometimes it is not even redressed. The grievances are not redressed. That is also another challenge. Now let us see what the report which was given, the comprehensive report which was published by Parliamentary Committee has talked about. The first, it talks about that there is no clear-cut policy. India does not have a clear-cut policy when it comes to Indian diaspora. There is no availability of data. There is no updated data available, right? And the third point is this. The immigration management bill has not been presented in the parliament. The report focuses that the Indian government should, as soon as possible, present this immigration management bill in the parliament. There are many portals. For example, in the Ministry of External Affairs, it has called a portal called Madad. For example, Madad portal is there, but there is no awareness. There is no awareness regarding the same. People are not aware that there exists a portal called Madad which will be helpful to them. Therefore, the report also suggests that the Ministry of External Affairs should create or spread awareness regarding the portal so that the workers who go outside should know. There is no rehabilitation scheme. A proper rehabilitation scheme is needed for Indian diaspora. Let's take example of COVID-19. What happened during COVID-19? There were so many immigrant workers who were left stranded in different parts of the world and they had to be evacuated. This brings us to another important point, that there is no effective evacuation policy. India does not have an evacuation policy. I know that there cannot be a uniform evacuation policy because different regions, they have different challenges. So there cannot be a uniform evacuation policy, but there can be a uniform guidelines that can be followed during such scenarios. For example, Operation Devi Shakti. What was this operation was about? Evacuating people from Afghanistan. When the Taliban rule came recently in the year 2021. In the year 2000. Right. So there is no effective evacuation policy. There is no effective rehabilitation scheme. So the report takes notice of these things. Effective implementation of the laws regarding the NRIs, especially the women. For example, we all know that women after marriage they go to different countries. For example, US. Let's take the example of US. In case they face hardship in their marital relation, economic, etc. So there is no dedicated policy when it comes to women and children. We need to make that. The report takes notice of this. And it also suggests that the government of India should also build an overseas citizen center for women. for NRI women, right? These are the recommendation, right? Another challenge is that the report has taken into consideration is the exclusion of major population. You see, the focus of the media and the focus of the citizens of India overall is mostly on the highly skilled population. What about the laborers who are working in the Gulf countries? What about the other workers, the semi-skilled workers? There is no focus on these categories. So the Indian government should have an inclusive policy, right? As I have already talked about the evacuation policy, I have talked about the rehabilitation policy, I have also talked about the grievance redressal. Right? Now let us move on to the recommendation of the committee. That what are all the steps that the committee has recommended that Indian government can take with respect to Indian diaspora. First is the policy document. There should be a policy document which provides as a general guideline to Indian government when it comes to dealing with Indian diaspora. When it comes to have policies, when it comes to have welfare programs related with Indian diaspora. Maintenance of data. Now, as we all know that data is the oil for 21st century. It is oil for 21st century. Data, what kind of data? I can give you a hint. It could be occupational related data, right? It can be age related, the demographic related data. That means that how many people from what part of the country are moving to which all other countries for what purpose? The age group, that means how many women have moved, how many children have moved, right? So this can be taken into consideration when data is maintained by the government of India. There should be a rehabilitation scheme. There should be an effective grievance redressal mechanism, right? We need to re-energize the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. That means we need to make it more inclusive. We need to invite people such as laborers, workers, etc. Not just the highly skilled professional or high status people or who are highly popular when it comes to outside, when it comes to politics or when it comes to other sectors of the economy. Not just those people, but also the laborers and the workers. So we can have an effective. We can re-energize the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. We should include the vulnerable diaspora. The committee also suggests the para-diplomacy and cultural diplomacy. We'll talk about these kind of diplomacy one by one. Okay. What is para-diplomacy? You see, the states, they do not have general role in formulating the foreign policy of the country. But para-diplomacy means that states should also participate. They should also partake when it comes to policy designing. For example, state. Now, let's take Kerala. Now, Kerala has a remittance-based economy, right? People from Kerala, they move to the Gulf industry to work, to Gulf countries. Now, what happens? The Kerala government can maintain a data that how many people and into what occupation and what is their profile. That means what kind of skills that they have, what is their qualification, why they have moved, and for how long they have moved and for how long they have been working in that country. Such data can be maintained by Kerala government, and this can work as an input to the government of India in order to formulate the policy. So this is what is known as the para-diplomacy. That means the state government should also partake into making the welfare programs and policies regarding the Indian diaspora. The cultural diplomacy. For example, the International Culture Center, they can be established outside. Kathak Kendra, the food, cuisine, right? So therefore, we know the importance of Indian diaspora now. We know how important the soft power is, and we also know the sectors and the areas in which the government of India should focus when it comes to economy, when it comes to the international relations. With this, so that's it for today, students. Have a nice day.